Hello again from my front porch, my bright and sunny front porch. I have the little tarp thing down so that the natural sunlight is all flooding in here, giving me the whole natural lighting thing. And last night we were supposed to have had these big, major, dramatic storms that were going to blow through. There was tornado warnings and all this kind of stuff reported. I don't know. Maybe it went through last night while I was asleep. But if so, it didn't leave much trace of anything. I don't think we actually got what they kept predicting. And this seems to be a constant, continual problem that as the technology gets better, gets more advanced for predicting weather, they can predict the weather less accurately. And it also seems like when there's the hint that something is going to happen, it gets overblown, touted like it's going to be a big deal, when in fact it hardly becomes that at all. Or in the case of last night, I don't know that there was some wind. I know there was some wind that went through. That was about all I was aware of. Now, there may be other parts of the state that would have different analysis, but I'm telling you, just where I'm at, what the predictions were and what actually was delivered upon, no, they did not correspond at all. Which kind of in a roundabout way leads me into what I wanted to talk about this time. And that is this concept of media neutrality. And neutrality coming from a sense of professionalism. Now, just as a reminder, in case you don't remember or if you're just tuning in for the first time, my degree is actually in journalism mass communication from Iowa State, and I earned my journalism degree. I also I got a teaching license to teach journalism at the junior senior high level in Iowa. I also worked for a newspaper. I worked for a couple of newspapers, but primarily as a reporter for one newspaper, where the stuff that I had done covering the Operation Desert Shield, when that was a thing, and the local impacts on people there and the support networks and stuff. We took a lot of the stories I wrote and the photos I'd taken, and we combined them into one special pull-out section, which I also got to design and put together, and was able to kind of do all aspects of that. The layout and design, sold the ads for it. It was a passion project of mine, and we won a second place Iowa Newspaper Association award for that publication. And so my work has won an Iowa Newspaper Association award. And I also work for a TV station. Now, I didn't work as an on-air person. I worked as a staff person, but still, I worked for our local ABC affiliate station, and so I'd like to think I know my way around the journalism world and the professionalism of it. I've studied it in school. I've practiced it as a practitioner. I've worked in a couple of different kinds of media area, and so I'm not claiming to be an expert. That's not what I'm just saying I know something. I know a thing or two. I may not know a 3 or 4, but I know a thing or two. And so with that being the case, I think of things like, we were just talking about the meteorology reports and stuff. I shouldn't say I know. I strongly suspect that part of what I was just referring to comes from the need for ratings, the need for viewers, the need to one-up other stations in the weather reporting. And that means that meteorologists are, I believe, I don't know for a fact, I'm just hypothesizing, I suspect are under a lot of pressure to get their reports out quick, get them out there, and make it as dramatic as possible, because you want to hook viewers in. You want them to think, oh, there's a big storm coming. All right, I got to stay tuned into this station because they're the ones giving me the information. And that's how you hook in your audience, with bringing them in that fashion. What do I know? Isn't that what the Italian? I'm not Italian, but isn't that what they say Italians do? That they'll give you all kinds of advice and then they'll wrap it up by saying, "But what do I know?" Which is their escape clause for if the advice they've given you completely screws up your life. It's not my fault because I said, "What do I know?" But But I want to delve a little deeper into this concept of the media professionalism, but specifically, I want to fine tip that into the notion of media neutrality. So take this, I use the weather thing to sort of bring us in, but now I want to take us in a little different direction, because there is a lot of belief that media should be neutral, that it should only report the facts and let people decide. That, part of the reason we even have the First Amendment, part of the reason that we even have a free and open press in the United States was because of the Founding Fathers' belief that a free press was necessary to educate the people, and that a fully informed citizenry was necessary for the governing of our nation. Honestly, I think you'd be hard-pressed to find anybody who genuinely today believes we have a fully informed citizenry. I say this as someone who's a big fan of journalism and wants to support that, but that ball has been dropped dramatically. But it's not just on the media. It's on our education systems too, which, again, I was a teacher. So I've dipped my big toe in both worlds. And I can tell you, neither of them have risen to the challenge. Neither of them have met the need for our citizenry to be fully informed. But there have been a couple of things that have been in the news here lately that caught my attention. One was, there was a 60 Minutes producer, I wrote his name down, Bill Owens. Bill Owens was a producer of 60 Minutes who just recently resigned, complaining that that he had too many restrictions put on him now, that he was not able to produce news segments the way he wanted to. On the surface, that sounds bad, especially in light of the fact that Donald Trump has been suing 60 Minutes, CBS and 60 Minutes, for things that he alleges they did in their coverage in the election that skewed people's opinions, that could be considered electioneering, could be considered election influencing. And specifically, there was an interview with Kamala Harris that the allegation, the proof is out there technically, I guess, that CBS substantially doctored, substantially edited that interview to make her look as good as possible. That had they actually aired, here's our question and here's what she said, she would not have looked as competent as she winds up looking in the final cut that 60 Minutes aired. And so stuff like that Donald Trump has been suing them for. And so in response, CBS has been tightening up. You can't have as much free reign on just putting out there whatever you want. It's got to meet these certain criteria. Well, I feel bad that this guy felt the need to resign over this. But again, speaking as someone with journalism credentials, if the way he's wanting to do his news programs is that kind of stuff, doctoring an interview to make the person you're interviewing look good, that's not news. That's not. I will do that on this show. If I have a guest, I will always tell them, I am not here to make you look bad. I want you to look good. If you say something that you go, hey, I don't like that, or you decide, you said something that you don't want to be in there, you just let me know and I will edit things out. I'll take stuff because I want you to look good. But I never say this is news. This is not a news program. This is just a talking head on a video blog. That's it. But 60 Minutes claims to be a news magazine on television. And so for them to then alter an interview with someone who's running for president in order to make them look a certain way, good or bad. If they edited an interview with Donald Trump and took out the good stuff and only gave us the negative stuff, that'd be the same problem, the other direction. Still, you're skewing what is being presented. There's another example. Chuck Todd, who is a well-known media individual, he recently revealed that during the Biden administration, especially in the last year or two, that everybody knew Biden had mental challenges, that he was succumbing to things like dementia, that he was not all there. But that there was a concern amongst media that if they actually reported that, if they actually were honest about that, that it might help Donald Trump. And so they held back. They hid that. They refrained from sharing that with the general public. They didn't want to seem like they were endorsing the accusations that Trump and his supporters were making. So even though they knew this as fact, even though they'd observed it with their own eyes, they withheld that intentionally so as not to help Donald Trump, which conversely means they were choosing to help Kamala Harris or other candidates running against Donald Trump. Now, you can be outraged about, I mean, I'm disappointed in both those situations, honestly. The editing of the Kamala Harris video, the willful negligence, in my opinion, of not reporting the condition of the President of the United States because you're worried about how an election might turn out. Ooh, no, that's wrong. You report the truth. That's what you report. But let's come back to the concept of media neutrality, because ultimately that's where people debate about this. Oh, well, 60 Minutes, they just edited it to make Kamala look good because they favored Kamala Harris and they don't like Trump, and so they were not neutral. They leaned to the left. Chuck Todd, all he's done is admit that the rest of the media establishment didn't like Trump so much that they withheld the truth because they were not being neutral. They were leaning to the opposite side, against Trump, whatever. Okay? Let's pause for a minute there. This is not about Trump. I don't want to mislead you in that way. It's about the willful choice of the media as to whether to get involved on one side or the other or to be neutral. Because there is this definite belief, and I've even espoused this myself, honestly, that the job of media is to simply report the facts and let people decide. Let the reader, let the viewer, let the listener, let the people decide. Don't just choose what you think they need to know. Don't just choose the stuff you prefer that they know. And then in the case of the Kamala Harris interview, then or even in the case of Joe Biden's condition of holding back the stuff you don't want people to know because it doesn't help the narrative that you're trying to present. I don't believe that is appropriate for journalism. I am definitely more that it needs to be neutral. That this is the situation right now. Donald Trump is president, and there are some media who want to report about all the great things going on under Trump right now. There are other media who want to report on all the negative things going on in Trump right now. And myself personally, I see a little bit of both. I see some good positives. I also see some really big negatives. And a neutral media would be presenting both, not just one side or the other. But let's talk about this a minute, because I was reminded of a scenario that was presented to us in one of my journalism classes in college. And it's a very poignant example of this. Stories told of a photojournalist, so a photographer, but a journalistic photographer, photojournalist walking on a bridge, and as he's coming onto the bridge, he sees a guy up ahead of him climb over the railing and position himself to jump, to commit suicide. The photojournalist quickly pulls out his camera and starts taking pictures as the man jumps and leaps to his death. These photos, this series of photos, this photo essay, were called powerful, they were called impactful, they were called startling, they were called jarring, they were praised for capturing the last moments of this individual's life who clearly was losing his battle with the struggles and the weights and the burdens that were on his life. Likewise, there were people who criticized the photojournalist for the obvious thing, first of all, of You did nothing to stop this man from taking his own life. You stood there and took photos while he just jumped. What is wrong with you? Should media be neutral? That photojournalist was neutral. He didn't step in. He didn't insert himself into that story. He simply documented it and then reported it, shared the images. See, many of the people who are upset at 60 Minutes, at all the other media folks that hid the Biden stuff, who are upset with those scenarios because it was skewed journalism, it was withholding information or promoting information based off of what the agenda was that was being promoted. That's not neutral. You needed to be neutral. Many of those same people would be upset at that photojournalist for letting the man jump off the bridge. And yet, if we're to be consistent, what the photojournalist did was the ultimate act of neutrality on the part of a media person. He simply captured what happened and reported it, which is what we say we want media to do. Now, I would hope that that scenario of the guy on the bridge doesn't happen frequently, but it is a bit of a gut check, because, like I said, I myself believe that media should be more neutral. I don't agree with the editing of the Kamala Harris interview. Now, it doesn't mean that I expect them to run it just raw. I do expect the videos to be edited. I even edit some of my stuff here sometimes. Again, I'm not a news program, but I'm okay with some editing of things like that. That's okay. But if you intentionally edit it with the vantage point, oh, I got an airplane flying over. Wow, I don't normally get the airplanes flying over right over my house that closely. Oh, must be coming in for landing in Ankeny, I would guess. Anyway, but if you, the squirrel flying a plane. But if you want media to be neutral, as I have said, because I want them to not influence that. Does that mean it's okay to edit an interview like with Kamala Harris? Again, I think yes, but not to the point that you substantively change what is said. Was it okay for media to hide Joe Biden's condition and to not let it really be openly talked about until after the election? I don't think so. No, I think it should have been revealed. By the same token, you go back to the 1960s, JFK was always shown as this youthful, vibrant young man president, but he had physical issues, that he sat in a wheelchair sometimes, that and you hardly ever saw that. Certainly not while he was president. Any images of that you've seen have come out since then. You can go back even farther to the 30s and the 40s, where Franklin Delano Roosevelt, strong leader. We have the only thing to fear is fear itself. The man who saw us through World War II. He spent most of his time sitting in a wheelchair, and yet you hardly ever saw that. He had canes and supports he would use for his legs. You hardly ever saw that. There was an agreement among media that nobody took pictures of those things, even though everybody saw it. So was that bad? Well, at the time, like of FDR's time, well, I'm sure that the justification was, no, it's important the American people during this time of war see their president as strong and powerful. Our enemies need to see that the president is not weak. He is strong, and so the media became part of that narrative. They stepped out and stopped the man from jumping off the bridge. Was that right? Was that the appropriate thing for them to do? I'm not here to give an answer. This is rhetorical question time. But I want you to think about this. I want to challenge you. And this is a much challenge for myself too, because like I said, I'm a big fan of media neutrality, and yet there's a part of me that the photographer not even calling out to the guy to don't jump doesn't sit well with me. And so which way do I really want it? I challenge you to consider the same thing. As you see media reports, and they will continue, of this politician or that politician, this celebrity or that celebrity, this scenario, but you're going to see stuff and it's going to be skewed. It's going to go one way or the other. But ask yourself, do you want neutrality? In which case, find those sources. Or do you really want someone to reach for that guy on the bridge, but you want them to reach for it with either the right hand or the left hand because you skew one way or the other? It's okay. Just own it. Be honest with yourself and others around you. That's all I would ask. That's the best any of us can do anyway. All right. Well, with that, I'm going to let y'all go, and I'll see you next time from my front porch.